Picture this. You tune into your favorite station, your morning coffee steaming, and you expect the usual. Music, weather, maybe a lighthearted chat. But instead, boom! A verbal explosion on Limpopo FM that turns your quiet kitchen into a live protest ground. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to @Global Pulse News, where we mix Malawian flavor with global fire. Today, we're breaking down the radio moment that shook Mzansi and rippled straight across Africa. Comrade Ntanyiwa's Limpopo FM appearance. Was it bravery or broadcast gone ballistic? Either way, the mic didn't just catch words, it caught history. And trust me, this one has everything: shock, satire, and serious soul-searching. So grab your earphones, sit back, or stand up if you're feeling patriotic, and let's count down the 10 moments that made this interview the most talked-about radio segment of 2025. When Comrade Ntanyiwa walked into the Limpopo FM studio, the energy shifted like a power surge through a dusty transformer. Ndiye muntu amene yusiwa kunyadira. He speaks like the air owes him attention. To the staff, it was just another Friday broadcast, but to the listeners, it became a revolution in surround sound. From his first words, half fire, half poetry, Ntanyiwa reminded people that the mic isn't just metal and mesh, it's a weapon of mass awareness. The host barely said welcome before Ntanyiwa was dismantling comfortable narratives like a mechanic stripping an old engine. Some listeners laughed, others froze, and a few probably spat out their tea in disbelief. His message: don't let fear manage your freedom. And the delivery? Sharp as a machete in maize season. Limpopo FM's phone lines melted with reactions, turning ordinary chatter into national debate. But that was only the ignition, because when you light one spark, you'd better be ready for the firestorm coming next. A typical Limpopo FM segment runs smooth. Music fades, host greets, topic introduced. But on that morning, protocol got tossed out the window faster than yesterday's playlist. Ntanyiwa launched straight into explosive statements that challenged leadership, corruption, and complacency in one unstoppable breath. In Malawian tone, Ama India mambo, tieni tikalia kulankula, osakia kungomva. Let's be speakers, not silent hearers. His passion electrified the room. The host blinked, technicians whispered, social media teams scrambled to clip the moment live. Within minutes, #Ntanyiwa on Limpopo trended across South Africa and Malawi simultaneously. For older listeners, it felt like a return to the protest radio of the 80s. For younger fans, it was meme gold. Either way, Limpopo FM's name suddenly echoed beyond borders. And if you think that storm was loud, wait until you hear how far its thunder rolled. Every viral moment has its quote. For Ntanyiwa, it was, "Truth is the only mic that doesn't need batteries." The line hit harder than a bass drop at midnight. Clips flooded WhatsApp, TikTok, and community groups from Lilongwe to Polokwane. In Chichewa, he doubled down. Zona zinshanta pokoso ngati dakhala nthawi yatali zosayankhulidwana. Truth makes noise when it's been silent too long. Listeners debated whether it was philosophical or just rebellious genius. Either way, it resonated. Even rival stations replayed it, dissected it, remixed it with beats. A simple interview transformed into a masterclass in spontaneous speechcraft. Journalists called it the radio's equivalent of a mic drop heard across Southern Africa. But remember, when you shake the ground, something or someone is bound to crack. By sundown, social media looked like a battlefield. Some hailed Ntanyiwa as the people's prophet, others called him reckless. Limpopo FM released a cautious statement about opinions expressed being those of the guest. Translation: please don't cancel us. Phone-in shows the next day were chaos. Callers shouted, cried, defended, accused. Politicians hinted he'd gone too far. But the more they criticized, the more his supporters multiplied. Back home, even in Malawi, community radio started replaying excerpts, sparking continental conversation on how media should handle outspoken voices. Limpopo FM's listener count skyrocketed. Sometimes controversy isn't a curse, it's free marketing. But for Ntanyiwa, fame came hand in hand with burn, and the burn was just beginning.
The week following the interview felt colder than July in Blantyre. Sources whispered that future bookings for Ntanyiwa were paused for review, a polite way of saying, "You're too hot to handle." Still, the man remained unbothered. "I wasn't invited to entertain," he posted online. "I was invited to enlighten." The quote gathered thousands of reactions. NBC, Power FM, even Channel Africa debated whether he had crossed the line of responsible broadcasting or simply redrawn it. The radio industry found itself stuck between freedom of expression and fear of backlash, a classic African media dilemma. Meanwhile, Limpopo FM quietly reviewed its guest policy, installing what insiders nicknamed the Ntanyiwa clause. But before you think the story ends with silence, think again. The next chapter speaks volumes. Beyond headlines, Ntanyiwa's broadcast triggered something deeper, a conversation about African identity and expression. Listeners across SA and Malawi said his energy felt authentically homegrown, not polished, not westernized, just raw truth wrapped in humor. Community youth groups quoted him during debates, lecturers used his interview in media ethics classes. The phrase "speak like Ntanyiwa" became a meme for bold authenticity. Limpopo FM accidentally created the year's biggest cultural export, courage through conversation. Ufulu si mavoti oka, ndi maawamine amveka. Freedom isn't just voting, it's being heard. And of course, when culture shifts, the politics soon follow. Politicians, never missing a PR moment, jumped in. Some praised Ntanyiwa for keeping leaders accountable, others labeled him dangerous populism. Either way, everyone was talking. Even the Minister of Information subtly referenced responsibility in broadcast speech, a diplomatic jab. The irony? Limpopo FM's ratings hit a 10-year high. Every controversy clip pulled new advertisers. As one insider whispered, "Scandal pays the signal bills." Ntanyiwa himself joked, "They say I'm noise, but look who's turning up the volume." That mixture of humor and heat cemented his status not just as a commentator, but as a cultural catalyst. But media storms don't just test politicians, they test the media itself. Newsrooms across Malawi and South Africa suddenly held ethics meetings. Should radio allow such raw expression? Where's the line between free speech and public harm? Limpopo FM executives faced that uncomfortable mirror. They wanted ratings, but not riots. And Ntanyiwa's defenders argued that uncomfortable speech is the bloodline of democracy. Critics feared imitation by less responsible hosts. The debate spanned editorials, talk shows, and campus blogs. In Malawian English, "Kuzana sichifupo jakunyozana." Speaking up doesn't mean tearing down. The episode revived long-ignored questions about African broadcast ethics, especially when the microphone turns into a megaphone of resistance. And from ethics, we drift naturally into emotion, because behind every debate, there's a heartbeat. In township cafes and minibuses, the conversation refused to die. Taxi drivers quoted Ntanyiwa's lines between fares, vendors played the recording on small Bluetooth speakers. To ordinary citizens, he wasn't just a guest, he was validation that their frustrations had a frequency. Meanwhile, the Limpopo FM host admitted in a later podcast, it was chaotic, but it was necessary. That honesty boosted public respect for both host and guest. For once, radio felt real again, unfiltered, unpredictable, undeniably alive. Listeners from Malawi sent voice notes saying, "We wish our stations were that brave." In a world of scripted headlines, authenticity became the new currency. And now we reach the final frequency, where reflection meets reality. Months later, Limpopo FM still feels the aftershocks. The Ntanyiwa episode became shorthand for fearless journalism. Courses at universities now analyze it as a case study in spontaneous social impact. For Ntanyiwa, it proved that one microphone can challenge a continent's comfort zone. For radio across Africa, it showed that listeners crave honesty more than perfection. Blunjing gatimawam tumoje, angasinte dikolonze. What if one person's words can change a whole nation? Whether hero or headline hazard, Ntanyiwa ensured that silence is no longer the standard. His story reminds us that sometimes the loudest revolution begins not with a protest, but with a mic. Because when truth goes live, it never signs off. And that's a wrap on the broadcast that rewired Africa's radio scene. If this story made your jaw drop, hit that subscribe button, smash the notification bell, and drop your thoughts below. Was Ntanyiwa courageous or chaotic? Remember, here at Global Pulse News, we don't just report, we amplify. Your opinions are our oxygen. Oh, and family, check out our sister channels. Sparkling Kids, for creative learning and fun for the little ones, and Rayma Fatima for educational stories that inspire. Let's grow together, share knowledge, and keep every voice loud, proud, and positive. Stay sharp, stay curious, and keep your pulse on Global Pulse News, where every truth gets airtime.